Hij ontving 9 Grammys en is de enige jazzmuzikant die de prestigieuze Pulitzer Prize kreeg. Momenteel is hij in Nederland met zijn Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. Ik heb het over Wynton Marsalis, een van de beroemdste jazzmuzikanten ter wereld. In Marsalis' oeuvre spelen zwarte burgerrechten een belangrijke rol. En hij ziet het als zijn taak om de traditionele jazz levend te houden. Een korte dwarsdoorsnede van zijn carrière.
De Amerikaan Wynton Marsalis, een van de beroemdste trompettisten van deze tijd. Hij is net 28 geworden en het bijzondere is dat hij zich zowel in de klassieke muziek als de jazz onderscheidt. En vandaag gebruikt hij zijn vrije dag om les te geven en te spelen op het Rotterdamse conservatorium.
I'm in an Indian restaurant, so I'm gonna get some chicken curry. What you have to do is, you go into a restaurant, you check out all the food. Check it out again, check it out again. Then about the 4th or 5th time of checking it out, then you start to know what you like and what you don't like. And this is what you try to do in music as you mature. That way you can develop really strong opinions that's based on knowledge rather than on prejudices.
Yeah, Wynton Marsalis. Let's give him a warm applause. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you so much. We found some footage of you when you were 28 years old, back in Holland, in Rotterdam, at the conservatory. What is it like to see those images again?
I don't know. I gained a lot of weight.
Oh, you get that's what you see?
Yeah, I don't really know.
Okay. You're here because you have a concert tomorrow in Amsterdam and on Monday as well. I have a question for you, because we listened to a little bit of your music, but what is jazz, like real jazz, about to you?
Well, we experienced it already tonight, listening to everybody talk.
Oh.
It says 3 fundamentals. We talked about how you manage yourself and also the larger space with other people. Jazz is a music that allows you to improvisation for yourself and the concept of swinging, which means that you then have to assess what everyone else is doing and make up things with them. We talked about waiting and being patient. In jazz, you're under such pressure of time that you have to play in that moment, and you're playing and you're creating and you're inventing things, and then there's a group that plays with you and you have to assess what you all are doing to move forward in a split second. We just talked about what goes on in the background. In jazz, we have a rhythm section. And the rhythm section is a background that improvises to a foreground that is also improvised.
Wow.
So we're constantly aware, what is that background? What's going on behind me? And we talked about the humor that exists when you're suffering something that is tragic. And in jazz, that's the blues. It is an optimism that's not naive. So the blues will talk about a broken heart, and it'll be a cry, and it'll have all those things. But under it will be a groove and a rhythm that lifts your spirits and the optimism that allows you to continue on. And I love when he said about he wanted to go somewhere just because of the wind. You know, just he felt the wind would bring him back to life.
Yeah.
And as a brass player, every time you take a breath, that's something new is about to happen. So it was very moving, you know, just to hear what they were saying. Actually, I started to almost tear up just and to think about the cross generations. That's also jazz. He said, I'm acting this. I grew up there. It's very different from somebody who came from
I'm
there.
so impressed that because you have translation. Somebody translated everything for you.
She's doing great too.
Yeah, she's
I love her.
She's our editor actually. She's not even her
fantastic.
professional job, but she's a native English.
She's fantastic.
But you analyzed the whole show already.
But let me just say about her translation, if she's translating it with a lot of feeling. I'm serious, I'm not joking. I'm really not joking, because I feel that everything in front of us is everything all the time.
Yeah.
And we just experience so much cross-generational things, and just her translation is We don't know each other, but I want to hug her.
Did she keep up with me? Because sometimes when I'm talking, I'm going too fast. Did she keep up?
No, at one point she said, "Oh, it's too complicated."
Too complicated.
At one point she said it's too complicated.
All right.
But
And Wynton, I also want to talk about something that's very important to you, because a lot of your work is you got the Grammy Award in '86 for Black Coats. You got the Pulitzer Prize. First ever jazz composition to win a Pulitzer Prize for Blood on the Fields.
Right.
You made the album From the Plantation to the Penitentiary.
Yes.
So you were in civil rights, in the civil rights movement. This is all very important to you. But what is the relationship between jazz and race?
Well, race and tribalism is a big issue in many parts of the world. How we deal with the other. Do we come to them with a hatred and a mistrust and the prejudices that we have? Or do we come to them with a desire to understand them and a willingness to know them? And in America, because our credo is freedom, of course, the proving ground of the democracy and the ideology and the mission of the country is how do we deal with those who were unfree? As is always the case in any mythology. And in any mythology, to fight a dragon, you have to go right to the center of it. So every 10 years, I touch on this subject. In the 80s, it was Black Coats from the Underground, which were laws, restrictive laws that kept Black people essentially in slavery after the end of the Civil War, American Civil War in the mid-1800s, which was supposedly the emancipation, and we were then free. And then Blood on the Fields is a story from slavery, which questions what is freedom.
Yeah, this was a story, this is about a couple who went from slavery to freedom.
It's about a man and a woman.
Yeah.
Generally, my longer pieces, for some reason, a woman is always the one who gives the knowledge. Because I feel that women are connected to an understanding that's deeper, connected to nature, connected to the moon, connected to cycles, nurture, bring life into the world, have a wisdom that has a depth. So as the lady Leona sings in Blood on the Fields, and it teaches the man who was a prince who's not opposed to slavery. He was a prince in Africa, comes to America and is a slave, not opposed to people being slaves. He just did not want to be a slave.
Yeah.
So there's the question we talked about, what is my relationship to a larger group of people, to an even larger group of people?
And why is this so, this is a very important theme for you all through your work. Why is it so important?
Well, because I think it's a human theme, and it goes back to kind of what people in the Judeo-Christian tradition call the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or am I my brother's keeper, which is the central theme of most religious documents. What is my responsibility to another person? What is my relationship to them? And I feel that in jazz, we know that the power of fission is the power of fusion coming together. It releases unbelievable power. The sun is fusion. But it's very difficult for us to come together because it's hard to be trustful. And there's always a tradition and this and the things that we know, and these people are going to do this. And
why is it hard to be trustful? I don't get that.
We don't trust ourselves. We know that we're capable of doing dumb stuff. We can look in the mirror and say,
Did I do
this stupidity that I did? And you don't have to be old to do it. You could be 8 years old thinking, boy, that was stupid.
Yeah.
And I think when you meet other people, you define yourself against them, but it's very difficult to know another person.
I know.
It's difficult to know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I was always around great jazz musicians when I was younger. I had no idea who they were. And they would tell me, man, you gotta learn blues. I didn't even know what that was. So many times when we speak to others, to develop the patience and the silence required to hear them and to feel them and to try to understand what they're saying. It's difficult.
Yeah, but you say it's a human thing. It's a human thing to make music, to make music about these themes. But you do more than just making music about it, because you were also you played an important role of removing the statue in New Orleans, where you're from, the Robert E. Lee statue. It was removed. Can you first explain what this statue symbolized?
Well, in the United States, when the South lost the war to the North, the South is about, give you a thumb line, our basic constitutional battle is between the rights of states and the rights of the federal government. The federal government largely will protect all of the citizens, and the states will do with the citizens as they will. It'd be like your family in the community. It's stuff you do in your house, the community doesn't know about that. So after the war, the states began to erect monuments to losing generals to tell people who lived there, hey, this is still going to be like it was before we lost this war. And those statues and those monuments remain, and they stand as symbols of slavery and as symbols against principles of democracy and symbols. So, and they're with us today. I always grew up with that statue. My great uncle hated that statue. And I lived with him when I was 6. And he was born in the 1880s. So that statue was erected in that time, in the late 1880s. So he hated the statue. So he made me understand this statue is here and I hate this statue.
Well, you must have been so... What emotion did you feel when the statue was finally removed? Oh, I think we have images, yeah.
You know, I think, yeah, with the statue was mainly the mayor at that time, Mayor Landrew. We were 2 trumpet players, middle-aged trumpet players. We played trumpet in high school.
Yeah, because you knew the mayor, yeah.
I knew him. His father had been mayor with my father. His father was a mayor who was one of the few politicians that actually looked out for Afro-Americans. So we loved him. My father loved him. He and I knew each other. So we were talking about trumpet playing and about life. And then we discussed this statue in the context of many things, and he made it happen. And I don't really hang that much on the removal of a statue. It's symbolic. Yeah. And it's important to remove these symbols, but I'm more concerned with the well-being of our democracy and our participation and our freedoms, and then with the world. Because I've been to many places in the world. I always think about, we say the word Iraq. I think about the great Nasir Shamma, who's master of oud in the times I spent playing with him. And the musicians I play with around the world. We're talking about Turkey, played at the festival in Istanbul. A Turkish musician came on our stage to play with us. I didn't even know what instrument he was playing. I said, man, what do you want to play? And he said, blues, man. And we started playing. So, yeah, I'm concerned. I'm fortunate to be. I come from a family of civil rights. My father was a teacher. My mom was a social worker. And yeah, I'm a believer in the human spirit. I believe in this. And
if we talk about hip hop, because hip hop and rap, you've been in other interviews, you've been quite critical about this. Yeah, I'm critical about this genre. Why?
I'm critical of it.
Because they also play a very big role now in civil rights. If you,
I don't know, but I just want to make the point that I am critical of it because it's my right to be critical of things. And it's the language that's used and the terminology, use of words like nigger and bitch and hoe and all of that. I'm against that. I don't care who likes it. I don't care if the whole world likes it. But I don't want to be reduced to a person that's always attacking hip-hop. I started doing it in the 1980s. I have many things that I like to talk about. And I question many things that limit our freedoms. In music, the symbolism that exists is a symbolism that will not bear fruit for us. Our grades are not going up. We're not more competitive. We're not more historical minded. And by we, I don't just mean Afro-Americans. I mean Americans. It allows us the guilty pleasure that the minstrel show allowed us in the 19th century. But that is just one of the issues that I like to talk about.
And last question, what do you hope to accomplish with your music?
To uplift people and to bring people together and to be absolutely for real about music.
Absolutely real about music.
To continue to learn and study and become a better musician, a deeper musician, and to collaborate and play with people and leave people feeling better than when I saw them, like you all have done for me today, listening to all these fantastic artists and what they were doing.
It was my pleasure.
Yes,
my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wynton Marsalis.
Thank you.
Thank you.